Before we begin, do consider subscribing to History Vault if you care about, serious historical knowledge that still holds practical value today. This channel exists to preserve techniques that modern society abandoned despite their proven effectiveness. And what you're about to hear is actually one of the clearest examples of ancient engineering outperforming modern convenience. Across Scandinavia, archaeologists continue to uncover Viking-age wooden structures, ships and tools that frankly should not exist anymore by modern standards. Yet they do. Longhouses exposed to snow and rain, ships soaked in salt water, storage buildings standing on damp ground, all survived for centuries without pressure treatment, synthetic sealants, or industrial preservatives. The Vikings did not rely on luck, mythical materials, or secret chemicals. Instead, they relied on deep environmental understanding, disciplined preparation, and methods that worked in harmony with wood rather than fighting it. Why Viking wood survival was intentional, not accidental. The Viking world was built on wood. Iron was precious, stone was labour-intensive, and survival depended on structures that could endure harsh winters, constant moisture, and limited maintenance. Failure was not an option. Because of this, Vikings treated wood not as a disposable material, but as a living substance that required careful handling from the moment a tree was chosen. Trees were selected with purpose. Vikings preferred slow-grown pine, spruce, oak and birch, harvested from colder regions where tight growth rings created dense, resilient timber. Cutting usually occurred in winter, when sap levels were lowest. This single decision dramatically reduced the sugars inside the wood that fungi and bacteria require to thrive. Modern forestry often ignores this, harvesting year-round for efficiency rather than durability. How controlled seasoning prevented internal decay? After felling, Viking timber was never rushed into use. Logs were air-seasoned for long periods, sometimes years, laid off the ground and exposed to wind, but sheltered from direct rain. This allowed moisture to leave the wood slowly and evenly. Fast drying causes internal cracks that trap water later, a major cause of rot in modern construction. Viking seasoning hardened the cellular structure and stabilized the timber long before it became part of a building or ship. This process can, be replicated today by storing cut lumber outdoors, under cover, with space for airflow. Even just a few months of proper seasoning really improves longevity compared to, say, immediate use or rapid kiln drying. Why surface charring was one of their most powerful tools. One of the most misunderstood Viking techniques was surface charring. Posts, planks and ship components were often lightly burned on the exterior, especially at ends and contact points. This was not decorative, and certainly not deep burning. The heat altered the surface chemistry, closing pores, driving off residual moisture, and creating a carbon-rich layer that's hostile to insects and fungi. Charred wood resists water absorption while remaining breathable. Moisture that enters can still escape, and that's really critical. Rot requires trapped moisture after all. By preventing saturation without sealing the wood, the Vikings created an ideal balance. This same principle, interestingly enough, protected the hulls of long ships that crossed oceans and rivers for decades. Today, a homeowner or, even a survivalist can apply this by charring fence posts, garden bed frames, shed supports, or cabin timbers before installation, especially at ground contact areas. How pine tar became a natural preservative. Vikings refined pine tar production into a high art. Tar kilns slowly cooked resin-rich pine roots and stumps, producing a thick, waterproof substance. This tar was brushed or rubbed into ships, roofs, tools, and exposed beams. Unlike modern sealants, pine tar penetrated deeply while remaining flexible and breathable. Pine tar repelled water, discouraged insects, and resisted fungal growth without creating a sealed surface. When it weathered away, it was reapplied. Maintenance was expected, not avoided. This mindset is central to why Viking wood endured. Modern equivalents such as raw pine tar or linseed oil blends can still be used today on outdoor wood, boats, sheds and log structures with excellent long-term results. Why Viking buildings survived moisture instead of fighting it. Viking structures were, designed to manage water, not exclude it entirely. Longhouses had elevated sills, stone footings, and, excellent drainage. Wood rarely sat directly in wet soil. Where contact was unavoidable, sacrificial components were used. Parts meant to be replaced while protecting the main structure. Airflow was, honestly, constant. Walls were not sealed airtight. Smoke holes, loose joinery, and open interiors allowed moisture to escape quickly after storms or snow melt. This prevented prolonged dampness, the true enemy of wood. Applying this principle today means, raising wooden structures off the ground, allowing airflow under floors, avoiding plastic barriers in non-climate controlled spaces, and designing for drying rather than sealing. So, the importance of joinery over fasteners, really cannot be overstated. Vikings relied heavily on joinery rather than metal fasteners. Pegs, scarf joints, and overlapping timbers allowed structures to flex with moisture changes instead of, cracking. Cracks trap water. Flexibility releases it. Ships especially benefited from this approach, swelling tight when wet and loosening slightly when dry without structural failure. This lesson applies directly to modern woodworking, allowing movement, avoiding rigid constraints, and designing joints that accommodate expansion significantly reduces long-term damage. Industrial construction prioritizes speed, uniformity, and minimal maintenance. Viking construction prioritized survival, repairability, and generational use. Their methods required time, observation, and respect for materials. When those values disappeared, so did the techniques. The irony is that these methods remain accessible, affordable, and effective. No chemicals are required. Only patience, understanding, and a willingness to work with natural processes rather than against them. If this deep dive into Viking craftsmanship helped you see wood, history, and construction differently, subscribe to History Vault and share this episode with others who believe ancient knowledge still matters. The past does not belong in museums alone. It belongs in the hands of those willing to learn from it.